So there you have it. I don't think any president will ever be considered as much of an embarrassment, as much of a schoolyard bully who backs down the moment he faces any form of pushback, repercussions, accountability, or retaliation. No one will ever be regarded as that more than Trump. Like it is painful to watch almost this 80 something year old man who is so clearly dealing with dementia, cognitive decline, along with this general malignant narcissism that seems to come from the unfortunate reality that neither of his parents seemingly loved him enough, refused to rule out military force to take territory off of a NATO ally and then back down the moment that there's any pushback. Like, goddamn. The only thing he had was the threat of military force. Okay? Offers to purchase Greenland? Nothing. No one cared. No one was interesting. No one was interested. Offers like a year ago, Donald Trump Jr. was caught paying homeless people to do like a photo op with him where they were all wearing MAGA hats, like they were all Greenlanders who wanted to be part of the US. And it was just found out that he'd paid a bunch of homeless people in Greenland and offered them food in exchange for playing along with his photo op. Like, what do we even do? This is absolute nonsense. This is exactly the same shtick as a year ago, except this time he's desperate to distract from the Epstein files and the failure of the US economy and the fact that the tariffs are about to be found illegal, various other issues that he cannot solve. And because he has zero domestic policy solutions to anyone's problems in the United States, he is going on this weird international rampage, hoping that if he can add a big swathe of territory to the US, he can claim victory and come across as a hero. And he's immediately ruled out military force, which would have been his only avenue to make any progress on this, because there is zero popular support in the United States and abroad for the US acquiring Greenland. There is zero reason as to why they should have it other than rare earth minerals. Okay, they already have an open check, open door agreement with Greenland to put whatever military assets they want to be there. Like, you remember when JD Vance did his state visit to Greenland, where zero people wanted him there. His team went door to door looking for people who would let them into their home, him and his wife into their home in Greenland, and they could find zero people that were willing to greet them. All of the dog sledding events and stuff that Vance said he was looking forward to seeing, they all got cancelled by the authorities because it was like, we don't want you here. And he ended up hiding for 4 hours on a military base in Greenland, gave a couple of speeches, and then left. Basically scarpered, right? Looking uncomfortable and uncertain and afraid the entire time because he knew that no one wanted him there, right? They have military bases there. They have military installations there. And if they wanted more military installations and assets there, all they would have to do is ask, and Greenland would say, yes, whatever you say. Because that's the arrangement that the United States has had with Greenland for a very long time, right? The only reason that this conversation is even coming up is because Trump pulled out a bunch of military assets from Greenland and has then turned around and said, oh my God, Greenland's undefended. We need to claim it as the 51st state. The 51st state obviously being a title they gave to Canada before realizing that that was a non-starter as well, and that was only humiliating Trump because Mark Carney is not going to back down. And Mark Carney hasn't backed down. In fact, Mark Carney is now in the process of trying to establish a new world order without the United States, which is completely unthinkable in a pre-Trump presidency. Like, what are we doing? This is absolute nonsense, right? This is just pure, like, this, I would call this a humiliation ritual. I would think this is some kind of kink he's got to just embarrass himself over and over and over again, achieving nothing. By the way, from what I understand, the U.S. economy's lost 1.2 trillion in terms of like the stock market. It's because of this kind of stuff, right? Because of all these threats, because of the instability threatened. And the simple reality is that what I said about NATO is absolutely correct. If you go watch my TikTok, I made some videos about NATO that absolutely blew up. This idea that NATO, as much as the US likes to propagandize it, Trump likes to propagandize it, is NATO is entirely dependent on US military spending. Well, the US military empire is entirely dependent on NATO. There are 750 international US military installations, military bases that are absolutely essential for the US's military force projection. And without NATO, a lot of those bases become defunct, and trillions of dollars worth of military assets and investments have to either be abandoned or taken back, and hundreds of thousands of military personnel all need to come home at once. And I think that's one of the main reasons why Trump has chickened out of using military force to acquire Greenland. Because they said, if you do this, NATO will collapse. There will be no more NATO, and that means no more NATO for the United States either. And then they turned around and thought, hang on a minute. the people close to Trump were like, actually, we really can't do this because if NATO goes down, there's no more US force projection. And if there's no more US force projection, then the US goes from being a global power to being a continental power, which would put it behind China, in my view. It depends on what you're talking about, right? Because China's more of a continent, more of a regional power as opposed to a global one. Their navy, for example, is a green water navy, not a blue water navy. So Trump has to humiliate himself after all of these threats and all of this. I'm not ruling out military force. We're going to have it one way or another. We don't care what Europe says. Well, Europe spoke and Trump backed down. I can't think of anything more humiliating, frankly. I don't know what else to say about it, really. Like, this is the American century of humiliation playing out before our eyes. It might just be, hopefully, the American decade of humiliation. It might just be 2016 to 2026, depending on whether or not he gets impeached. But I can't think of, it's just shameful. Like, it's mortifying. I can't understand how he's managing to make me feel bad for him as an 80-year-old guy who's in the Epstein files. But like, this guy is a child. He has literally no idea what's going on. It's shocking that in 10 years of being a big player, one of the biggest players in American politics and by extension global politics, he still has zero idea how politics work. Domestically and internationally, he has zero idea how any of these things work. So he's just freestyling it. He's just airballing it this whole time, and that's why in this administration, especially the second Trump administration, where he's stocked the cabinet and stocked his entire deck with loyalists, people who will never say no to him because he's Big Daddy. He's the Messiah, right? That's why he's messing up so much, because in the first administration he had a bunch of people that were establishment people that were like, we can't do this, we can't do that, keeping him on a leash to an extent. He was still saying stupid stuff, he was still making an absolute arse of himself, but there was a system around him, there was a structure around him. This time there's no structure. It's just a pyramid, it's just a cult with him at the top. That's why he's messing up so badly, because it's all based on what he wants, and what he wants is not informed by any understanding of politics or international relations or economics or the law, right? That's why he's just humiliating himself over and over again, because after 10 years, he hasn't learned anything at all. Honestly, it's American century of humiliation, baby. But that's I had to have a quick word on this. And the fact that he's also like if you look in the caption of that, he's talking at World Economic Forum, he's referring to Greenland as a piece of ice. It's like even the salesman tactics that he claims that he's so good at, right? That he's so good at making deals, insulting Greenland, referring to it as a piece of ice. Some of his cronies talking about how Denmark is so irrelevant, whatever. And he's like, oh, but I want to purchase Greenland off you. People don't do business with people who insult you, right? They're not going to do business with people whose attitude is just to look down their nose at you and insult you. So I don't know what he's even trying to do there. Like, he's still talking like he's going to use military force. But he's had to rule that out because NATO is too important to the US military machine. Genuinely embarrassing. I have zero idea. Anyway, like and subscribe, and I want to keep making these because this is fun. Ciao, ciao.